Well, now we segue from the capstone doctrine of 2 years ago to the draft DPKO DFS concept note on robust peacekeeping of a couple months ago, which is sort of in general circulation, but I don't know if it's posted on the web. Was offered for consideration at the special committee session this year. The term, as Jocelyn noted, was not taken up or adopted by the C34. It says that reaching a common understanding on robust peacekeeping is a prerequisite to enable robust peacekeeping on the ground. Yeah, if this is a special kind of peacekeeping, it's probably good to reach that kind of definitional agreement, but not if it isn't a special form of peacekeeping, and I would argue it is not a special form of peacekeeping. Robust is whatever works against violent opposition. Okay? It's a tactic, it's an operational stance. It's not a form of peacekeeping juxtaposed, opposite and apart from all other forms of peacekeeping. The concept note repeats the assertion that all peace enforcement is without the consent of the host government and strategic in nature. And to that I say, what were the gang operations in Port-au-Prince? I think they were certainly peace enforcement. They were with the consent of the government. They were at an operational and not tactical level, and they had strategic impact in favor of peace. So I think we need to be careful about seizing this term and reifying it. It should not be reified as a type of operation. The anti-militia operations in Ituri and DRC in 2003, 2004, certainly at an operational level, generally with the consent of the government. So how do you achieve the goals of robustness without using the word or the term of art or reifying the class of operations? And here I've adapted a definition that the report, the concept paper, uses as its definition of robust peacekeeping, and I think you can just drop the word robust and do just fine. That a peacekeeping operation must be able to demonstrate willingness, capacity, and capability to deter and confront, including through the use of force when necessary, obstructions to the implementation of its mandate. I think that's good. We don't have to call it a robust peace operation to get there. It's not much different from the Brahimi injunctions, and I think there's therefore no need for a special label. So how did we get here in terms of talking about robustness? To use a movie metaphor, and those are the kinds I usually use because I'm terrible at sports and sports metaphors, which is just as well in an international setting. So then to use a movie metaphor, these are the nightmares on Elm Street for the United Nations that have dogged the dreams of peacemakers and peacekeepers for the last 2 decades. So you had the Unified Task Force handing off to UNISOM II in Somalia with 1/3 the force of UNITAF. You had the war for Mogadishu. You then had Black Hawk Down with U.S. Special Forces drawn into a firefight. Then you had the U.S. and UN withdrawing, followed by 15 years of anarchy in Somalia, followed by whatever it is we've got there today, looming. To the left with UNPROFOR in Bosnia-Herzegovina in particular, an operation whose contributors, primarily for the first couple of years, European, unwilling to do more than humanitarian protection, unwilling to suppress conflict, until the Srebrenica massacre, which freed up politically NATO to undertake airstrikes against the Bosnian Serb army, which in turn led to the Dayton Accords, I-4, S-4, and the, I suppose, frozen, slowly evolving political situation we have today with relatively little UN involvement. Those who are stuck in the unending operation are the EU, the PIC, the High Rep, almost everybody but the United Nations. Who knew the UN would be the first to leave? And then the third example from UNAMIR and Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide, the tardy follow-on force, which was invited out by the government, which is a trend we're seeing more now than before. I believe, Carolyn, also Onub was invited out by the government of Burundi, or is that a misnomer?
Well, we stalled long enough so that we could say it didn't happen.
Yeah, okay.
The new government was not happening.
The new government, when it was elected in August, September of 2005, decided that they were embarrassed by the presence of a large UN mission and wanted a faster scale down than New York wanted. But we managed to come up with a compromise, which led to a scale down that was sooner than New York wanted, but later than originally intended. So it was a negotiated withdrawal.
Thank you. Because we have, I think, a trend in that direction in some of the Central African missions now, Chad, Sudan perhaps, if things come push to shove, and Congo. So how did we get here? Part two in this century began with Kosovo, with Sierra Leone, with East Timor, leading to the Brahimi Report, the need for robust, well-equipped forces with robust rules of engagement, and then what I call a buncho Chapter 7 missions, which is the big surge in 2003, 2004, which swept Carolyn McCaskey into Burundi, got too deeply engaged, I think, in the Kivus, got pinned against the government in Sudan, found themselves facing down the gangs of Port-au-Prince, are now worried about facing anarchy and terrorism in Somalia, worried about violent dissolution and return to civil war in Sudan, and really can't afford to protect everyone on a retail level. In other words, as violence is witnessed. This person, that group, this crowd. The problem in part there is that in David Bailey's sense, the world is not policed, right? Nobody has to come if you call or if you're in trouble. There's no global 911. And the world is full of a bunch of autonomous neighborhoods that can't decide to incorporate and have their own police, except at the national level. Right? Those are the neighborhoods, the national level. So when the UN gets called in, the force commanders, SRSGs look around and say, oh darn, there's 12,000 of us and 5 million of them. Exactly what can we accomplish here? So to continue the film metaphor and bring this to a close, for fragile and post-conflict settings, who are you going to call? Okay. If you call, will they come? If they show up, will you be glad they did? And will you be glad eventually? And finally, the 3 words that you hope never to hear, I'll be back.
Merci Bill. Alors Jean-Marie Guéhenno, c'est votre tour.
Merci Jocelyn, et je voudrais d'abord dire mon plaisir d'être aujourd'hui avec vous à l'Université de Montréal et d'être au Canada, parce que, je vais être tout à fait honnête, j'ai quelquefois regretté que le Canada se soit à ce point désengagé des opérations de maintien de la paix, qu'on ne voit pas de casque bleu canadien, mais en même temps j'ai apprécié tout au long des années que j'ai passées à la tête du département des opérations de maintien de la paix, le soutien continu de la diplomatie canadienne, et à commencer par la mise en œuvre du rapport Brahimi. Et je crois que sans le soutien de pays comme le Canada au niveau diplomatique, dans les discussions qui ont eu lieu aux Nations Unies, on n'en serait pas où on en est. Et donc, je veux commencer par exprimer ma reconnaissance sur ce point. As Bill Durch said, the Brahimi report did not envisage a new category of peacekeeping. It just stressed the importance for peacekeeping forces to have a posture that would not heard